Morning to all of my students there. So today we will be discussing about the proliferation of nuclear weapons. As you all know, after that, first atomic bomb which was dropped in 1945, which was a major turning point and which obviously changed the very narrative of warfare. And we know it pretty well that enough nuclear warheads, have been created and stockpiled which can destroy this beautiful civilization many times over, not once but many times over. And that is where actually the concept of just war has become very redundant. So we will be discussing, all about, what kind of measures are being taken to prevent this nuclear confrontation, which obviously, as we know, all know that nobody is going to be winners, nobody is going to be victors, because all will be vanquished, all will be defeated, because there will be no one to celebrate victory. So everyone will be a loser, and that is what actually is changing the very narrative of warfare. Because the delivery mechanism and the sophisticated arms and ammunition, and particularly even weapons of mass destruction, are stockpiled in such a way that there is absolutely no way that this planet can be saved if such nuclear weapons are going to be used. Thankfully, the Third World War has been prevented so far. During the Cuban crisis, we all know how the two superpowers came very close to a confrontation. There was a eyeball to eyeball confrontation, and it could have very well resulted in the Third World War, and who knows, it could have obviously probably devastated and completely destroyed this beautiful little planet. So that is the topic we are going to deal with today. We will talk about that threadbare and what kind of precautions have been taken. Are they sufficient? Are they complete? We will be doing it both in Hindi and English, as we are doing every time. So you have to have patience. So now let's actually have a look at this introduction part. How development and use of nuclear weapons in 1945. That means when the Second World War came to an end, to discipline Japan, or to, you can say, teach Japan a lesson. Okay, there was a Manhattan Project which was looking after the research on nuclear weapons. Robert Oppenheimer, who is regarded as the father of nuclear bomb, atom bomb, was very much there, and who was guiding the project, who was supervising the project. And in a clandestine manner, USA and its allies, excluding, please remember, Soviet Union, though it was the ex-Soviet Union was one of the allies, but it was actually, it didn't know anything about this project. Okay. I mean, officially it was not actually made public, and obviously Soviet Union was not a part of that. So USA and its other allies, they developed the nuclear bomb, and then it was dropped in 1945, with which the Second World War came to an end. First it was dropped on Hiroshima, and then a much more powerful bomb was dropped a few days after that on Nagasaki. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and after that we all know, how the consequences were felt long after that. Even it is said that even now also when children are burned, they are not actually normal children. So such is the impact and consequences of this devastation. Okay, which has obviously, a major turning point in the history of warfare. And now humanity has the capacity to end its own existence. That is the irony. Okay. And during the Cold War, after the second, World War, obviously the condition which followed, as we all know, that the world was divided into two major power blocks. On the one hand, you had NATO, which was guided by United States of America, and the other Warsaw Pact, which Warsaw Group, which was led by the ex-Soviet Union. So, and there was all kinds of, mistrust, lack of confidence, and it was a no war, no peace situation. Okay, it would actually, appear as if the whole world was sitting on a volcano. Anytime it could explode. Okay, and even such was the tension, uncertainty, that a flock of birds was misconfused as a set of missiles. I mean, that was the kind of, lack of trust and confidence. So anything could have happened actually. So, and this was happening, please remember, that kind of, Cold War scenario was prevailing under the shadow of the bomb. So everybody knew that another, world war or war where nuclear weapons could be used by any of the, states which had nuclear weapons, it could very well destroy the entire world. So that was the, kind of, situation. Let me do it in Hindi also. आणविक जो शस्त्र का जो पहले विकास और व्यवहार भी हुआ 1945 में, ये एक मेजर टर्निंग पॉइंट है इतिहास में, क्योंकि वॉरफेयर की कॉन्सेप्ट को, अवधारणा को पूरी तरह से बदल दिया है। और वार को जिस तरीका से एक डिप्लोमेटिक मीन्स के रूप में इस्तेमाल करने की जो बात कई बार रियलिस्ट करते थे, वो कहीं ना कहीं ये खत्म हो गया, क्योंकि इसमें आप देख रहे हैं कि पूरा ऐसे शस्त्र कई कंट्री का पास अभी है जो न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट है, जो कि सिविलाइजेशन को एक बार नहीं कई बार नष्ट कर सकता है। और इसीलिए आप ये कह सकते हैं कि अभी ह्यूमैनिटी के पास अपने आप को खत्म करने के लिए पूरी शक्ति आ गई, जो कि अपने आप में बड़ा विरोधाभास है। कोल्ड वॉर की पीरियड जो इसका बाद शुरू होती है, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर जब खत्म होता है 1945 में, और ये खत्म होने का जो सिलसिला था वो जापान को एक लेसन सिखाने के लिए और वार को खत्म करने के लिए 1945 में जिस तरीका से पहले हिरोशिमा में, उसका बाद और एक पावरफुल बम नागासाकी में ड्रॉप किया गया, और उसका बाद उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस आज तक भी लोग भुगत रहे हैं। और उसके बाद तुरंत बाद आप देखते हैं कोल्ड वॉर शुरू हो गया, क्योंकि कुछ साल बाद जो मैनहट्टन प्रोजेक्ट में सोवियत यूनियन को शामिल नहीं किया गया था, क्लैंडेस्टाइन वेल में अमेरिका और उसकी जो अलाइज और अलाइज थे, हालांकि सोवियत यूनियन में उसका अलाई था लेकिन उसको बाहर रखा गया था, और सोवियत यूनियन लेकिन कुछ सालों में 4 साल 5 साल के अंदर उन्होंने भी न्यूक्लियर वेपन हासिल कर लिया, वो कैपेबिलिटी हासिल कर लिया। तो इसीलिए इसका बाद जो कोल्ड वॉर जो शीत युद्ध शुरू हो जाती है, जिसको कहते हैं कि ऐसा है कि युद्ध है जो आर्थिक, राजनीतिक, सांस्कृतिक सभी क्षेत्र में लड़ा जाता है, सिर्फ ओवर्ट मिलिट्री कॉन्फ्रंटेशन नहीं है। डायरेक्ट मिलिट्री कॉन्फ्रंटेशन के बिना ये सही माने पे एक ऐसा ऑल आउट युद्ध है जो सभी क्षेत्र में लड़ा जाता है, और इसमें जो कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल, जो ट्रस्ट फैक्टर है, वो बिल्कुल नहीं रहता है। इसीलिए एक अनसर्टेनिटी, अनिश्चितता की साथ वर्ल्ड जो है गुजर रहा था। पूरा विश्व दो हिस्सा में बट गया था। नाटो के द्वारा लीड करते हुए जो अमेरिका नाटो को लीड कर रहा था, एक तरफ वो था, और दूसरी तरफ वार्सो ग्रुप जो कि भूतपूर्व सोवियत संघ के द्वारा नियंत्रित था। तो ये दोनों में ये जो समस्या, ये समस्या के बैकग्राउंड में जब आप बम की छाया को देखेंगे तब लग रहा था किसी भी क्षण ये कोल्ड वॉर अगर हॉट वॉर हो गया तो पूरा जो धरती जो है वो नष्ट हो जाएगा। न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस, that this is a theory which is particularly given by the realist scholars, and they actually see that nuclear weapons as the linchpin of a deterrent system which can effectively rule out war between major powers. So that way they actually see that nuclear deterrence can actually play an important role in preventing war between major powers. Okay, but this is very, very controversial, because as you will see that there are other opinions also, other scholars who would actually view the nuclear arms race as a source of unending tension and insecurity. And by and large, I think you can include me in this group as well. We all stand for in this kind of a view that nuclear arms race is definitely a source of unending tension and insecurity. Because you cannot actually, there are talks that, we can have a limited nuclear warfare, but it is completely impossible. Once it is unleashed, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible to control it. Okay. And because when we know that a few of the nuclear weapons, if they are used, they can destroy this world many times over, because we have overkilling capacity. So this kind of, nuclear deterrence theory doesn't actually work. It is very dangerous. They call it balance of terror. That, if there are nuclear weapons, and if the other countries also have the nuclear weapons, it will create a situation of balance of terror. So one will balance the other. So you can say essentially this is a kind of, having trust on balance of power system, and balance of power system, as we all know, has proved to be completely ineffective. There are some questions here. Does the theory of nuclear deterrence work? Do nuclear weapons promote responsible statesmanship, or do they fuel expansionist ambition? We can actually cite the example of North Korea, which is a rogue state. We can cite even the example of China. Sometimes it is also flexing its muscles. So there can be expansionist ambition. So you never know actually whether this theory of deterrence will work. And to say that nuclear weapons can promote responsible statesmanship, it's completely bizarre. Nobody is going to buy this kind of a theory. Nevertheless, anxieties about nuclear proliferation have, if anything, intensified during the post-Cold War period. So, in the post-Cold War period, as we all know, in 1991, when the Soviet Union, ex-Soviet Union rather, which completely, disappeared from Earth, as we all know, and there were more than 15 republics which came out of that. And it is said that the Cold War has ended, and this period is referred to as 1991 onwards, is referred to as post-Cold War period. But, has nuclear proliferation stopped? No, it hasn't. It has rather intensified. It was obviously, believed by many scholars, like End of History, which is a classic by Fukuyama, and which believed that, this kind of, this cold ending of the Cold War would actually uh, unfold a very good time, a positive environment, and will be moving towards peace and progress, prosperity for all. The days of confrontation, warfare, mistrust is over. This was actually, believed that way, but it hasn't happened that way. It hasn't actually, unfolded that way at all. There are more insecurity in the small and developing countries. They are actually facing a continuous threat, because a bipolar world at least was giving some sort of stability. If one superpower was going to do something funny, the other superpower was definitely, coming to the rescue. So there was some kind of, balance. I'm not actually saying that that's a very happy situation, but there was some kind of balance at that point in time. But even that is denied now, because a unipolar world with America, dominating the scene. I mean, that is, sometimes it was considered to be much more dangerous for the small and developing country. Look what happened, in 2001, when there was a terrorist attack on World Trade Center. United States of America didn't listen to the world body, didn't actually pay any heed to United Nations, and even didn't listen to its own NATO partners. Except Britain, nobody was supporting United States of America when it attacked Afghanistan, a poor country, to catch hold of Osama bin Laden. Did they succeed? No, they didn't. It was only later on that Osama bin Laden was found in Pakistan and was killed there by United States of America, and they threw the body in the ocean. That is all, history. We know all that. But a poor, non-aligned country was attacked in clear violation of international law, and nothing happened. Nobody could do anything against the United States of America. Not only has the nuclear club grown from 5 to at least 9, but many argue that the constraints that had previously prevented nuclear weapons from being used have been dangerously weakened. So, obviously, it has intensified. Proliferation has intensified in all practical senses, and there is no, restraint on this. Okay, इसको थोड़ा हिंदी में मैं आपको समझा देता हूँ. एक थ्योरी जो यथार्थवादी न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस थ्योरी देते हैं, और उनका कहना है कि न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस की वजह से वार को रूल आउट किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि जो मेजर पावर्स के बीच में युद्ध नहीं होगा अगर ये न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस रहेगा. तो न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स का कहीं ना कहीं वो ये कह रहे हैं कि उसका एक बहुत पॉजिटिव एक रोल है, एक भूमिका है, जो कि पीस रखने, शांति स्थापन करने में मदद कर सकता है. बहुत बिजार आर्गुमेंट है, बहुत बिजार थ्योरी है ये, क्योंकि आप सभी जानते हैं कि न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स इतने डेंजरस है कि एक बार उसका इस्तेमाल हो गया, उसको कंट्रोल करना, जैसे कि कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि हम लिमिटेड न्यूक्लियर वारफेयर कर सकते हैं. ये लिमिटेड हो ही नहीं सकती. इसका नेचर ऐसा है कि ये अनलिमिटेड और वेरी डिवास्टेटिंग कॉन्फ्रंटेशन को रूप देगा, और इसको कंट्रोल करना किसी का बस की बात नहीं है. ये बात बहुत सारी स्कॉलर्स भी इस बात पे उनका कंसेंसस है. आप इसमें मुझे भी आप शामिल कर सकते हो कि न्यूक्लियर आर्म्स रेस एक ऐसा सोर्स है जो कि अनएंडिंग टेंशन का कोई सीमा नहीं है, असुरक्षा की कोई सीमा नहीं है, उसको जन्म देगा. यहाँ पर कई सारी क्वेश्चन उठता है कि क्या न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस काम करेगा, जिसका बारे में हम अभी हमने बताया कि ये काम नहीं कर सकता है, ये थ्योरी ही गलत है. क्या न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स नेताओं में एक उत्तरदायित्व नेतृत्व लाएगी, या ये कुछ राष्ट्र में ऐसा एक इच्छा पैदा करेगा कि वो डोमिनेट करें, वो दूसरा को कब्जा करने की कोशिश करे, उनका एक्सपांशनिस्ट जो एम्बिशन उसको रूपरेख दे. तो ये सब ऐसे सवाल है जो कि हमें नेगेटिव तरफ ले जाता है. रेस्पॉन्सिबल स्टेटमेंटशिप होगा और इसीलिए ये हमें बचा लेगा, ऐसा कोई नहीं गारंटी दे सकता है. और हम देखते हैं कि किस तरीका से एक रोग स्टेट जो नॉर्थ कोरिया है, इवन ईरान, इराक भी कई बार आप देखते हैं कि किस तरीका से न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी का किस तरीका से इस्तेमाल करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, और कैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानून की धज्जियां उड़ा रहे हैं. चाइना की बात भी आप कर सकते हैं, जो कि कहीं ना कहीं उसके बलबूते पे एक एक्सपांशनिस्ट जो एम्बिशन रखता था. ये अलग बात है कि अभी इंडिया का पास ऐसे शक्ति है, और इस बार जो चाइना का साथ कॉन्फ्रंटेशन को आप देख रहे हैं, जो एक्सपांशनिस्ट जो एम्बिशन है चाइना का, उसको काफी हद तक सीमित किया गया. ये एक अलग बात है. फिर जो न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन को लेकर, उसकी स्प्रेड को लेकर जो एक एंजाइटी, जो उत्कंठा है, ये पोस्ट कोल्ड वॉर में और ज्यादा बढ़ गया है. शीतल युद्ध अंत हुआ 1991 में सोवियत संघ के विघटन के साथ, और ये सोचा गया कि इसका बाद जो है, अब जो है बहुत शांति और विकास की तरफ हम आगे बढ़ेंगे, और ये जो संघर्ष की समय बदल गया. तो ये बहुत सारी रोजी पिक्चर दिखाया गया, और इस समय में एंड ऑफ हिस्ट्री करके एक बहुत क्लासिक किताब जो फुकुयामा के द्वारा लिखा गया था, तो उसमें इस तरीका से बहुत सारी सकारात्मक बात कही गई है. लेकिन हम क्या देखें, ये इंटेंसिफाइड हुआ. न्यूक्लियर क्लब जो कि 5 था, वो एटलीस्ट 9 तक पहुंच गया. और फिर ये देखा जाता है कि बहुत सारी जो प्रतिमत, जो बाधाएं कम से कम न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स के ऊपर था ताकि वो इस्तेमाल ना हो पाए, वो सब धीरे धीरे कमजोर हो रहा है. तो इसीलिए प्रोलिफरेशन अब हो रहा है ज्यादा. एंड we'll be talking about the proliferation and some uncertainties which are obviously related to it. And here again another eminent question which can emerge here: in what ways have the incentives for states to acquire nuclear weapons intensified? As we are saying that in the post-Cold War era, proliferation has intensified, nuclear weapons have intensified. Then what are the incentives? Is it now more likely that nuclear weapons will get into the wrong hands? What is that wrong hands? We all know how actually India declared its nuclear capability, weapons capability in 1998. And a few days after that, 15 or 20 days after that, soon Pakistan also, which had clandestinely acquired the ability, but it was not declaring, but it also declared. Okay, it was all in the public domain. So the South Asia became nuclearized now. And we all knew that in traditional warfare, India had supremacy, and Pakistan had fought, for 3 wars, and in each of the war, Pakistan has been defeated comprehensively. But when it is a nuclear confrontation, you never know what is going to happen. And Pakistan has started using this nuclear capability, weapon capability, to use it as a diplomatic weapon. Okay, because it is inferior as far as traditional weapon is concerned, traditional warfare is concerned. So it is using that in the international forum, trying to blackmail, some of the developed countries, that if you are not siding with us, and if there is a confrontation between India and Pakistan, we will be using nuclear weapons. Be sure of that. And that is why you saw that in when Kargil conflict was going on, United States of America, Britain, all these developed countries, actually they came to the scene, and they tried to convince both the countries to cool down. And now, what is this wrong hands? Let me explain. The fact that we all know that Pakistan is proving to be a failed state, and since the terrorists which are trained, recruited, given all kinds of help in Pakistan, so it is regarded as a, obviously we all know, for all practical purposes, it is a country which is using terrorism as a state-sponsored policy. State-sponsored terrorism, cross-border terrorism, it is very, obviously famous for that, rather infamous for that. And we all also know that the terrorists which are there in the backyard of Pakistan, anytime they can be so powerful that the nuclear arsenal which are there in Pakistan can get into the wrong hands. That means can get into the hands of the terrorists. And you know how terrorists, obviously they will not care whether the world is going to be completely destroyed. They will not actually bother about that. Okay. And there are obviously all kinds of suicidal squads are there. So obviously they will care nothing. And there can be a nuclear confrontation. That is what even developed countries are also sometimes perceiving. They feel that in Kashmir is the next flashpoint, and probably there will be a nuclear war, nuclear confrontation because of Kashmiri problem. Okay. Finally, greater anxiety about nuclear proliferation has been reflected in an increasing emphasis on the issues of arms control and disarmament. So how actually, it is now being connected to arms control and disarmament. It is said that, through arms control and disarmament, nuclear disarmament, we can probably prevent proliferation of nuclear weapons. Okay. So the anxiety is obviously reflected there, the kind of, talks that are going on and the kind of efforts. We will be talking about some of the efforts, of course, in the course of our discussion. We'll see, how these talks have themselves failed miserably. Okay. Yes, India stands for its commitment to total and comprehensive, complete disarmament. and non-use of any kind of weapons, nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. India stands for that. But the other countries, sometimes you feel that there is a kind of a diplomacy which is going on, and the efforts we will actually discuss, of course, later on. You will see that there is always a desire to dominate, to have monopoly over nuclear weapons and nuclear technology, and to prevent other countries the same kind of knowledge, which is obviously discriminatory. We will talk about that more in a much more comprehensive manner. Although non-proliferation strategies have ranged from diplomatic pressure and the imposition of economic sanctions to direct military intervention, these are different strategies, okay, ranging from diplomatic pressure, imposition of economic sanctions, and last, direct military intervention, which you saw actually. Say, for example, how Iran attempt was made to actually intervene there and discipline that country. And you all saw that how in 2003 Iraq was attacked, Saddam Hussein's regime was attacked by United States of America, because it was felt that Saddam Hussein was not only having nuclear weapons, but it was also having biological weapons. Okay, and that is why it was attacked in 2003. So it is bordering from strategies from diplomatic, starting with the diplomatic pressure through imposition of economic sanction to last direct military intervention. But even then, nuclear arms control has been notoriously difficult to bring about. Even then, they have not succeeded in controlling nuclear arms, and more countries are having nuclear weapon capability. अब इसको हिंदी में थोड़ा सा कि किस तरीका से आप देख रहे हैं कि क्यों स्टेट्स जो है न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स अब एक्वायर कर रहे हैं, उनके ऊपर जो पाबंदी वो इतनी कार्यकारी नहीं हो पा रहा है। और इसी सिलसिला में कई बार ये भय भी आ जाती है कि क्या न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स कभी टेररिस्ट का हाथ में तो ना चला जाए। अगर टेररिस्ट में हाथ में चला जाए, पाकिस्तान की एग्जाम्पल में दे रहा था, खास करके पाकिस्तान जिस तरीका से एक फेल्ड स्टेट के रूप में हम सभी जानते हैं, और स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म जिस तरीका से क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म वो भारत के साथ उनको लगता है कि ट्रेडिशनल वॉरफेयर में तो वो तो बहुत भारत के सामने कुछ भी नहीं है। तो इसीलिए वो क्या करता है कि जिसको कहते हैं सब्जेक्टिंग इंडिया टू 1000 कॉट्स, यानी टेररिस्ट को इस्तेमाल करके भारत को क्षति पहुंचाना चाहते हैं। और खास करके आप देखते हैं कि किस तरीका से जो न्यूक्लियराइजेशन हो गया साउथ एशिया, जब 1998 में इंडिया पब्लिकली डिक्लेयर किया और वेपन कैपेबिलिटी इंडिया का आ गया। हालांकि इसको आप सभी जानते हैं कि वर्ल्ड में कई कंट्रीज जो है इसको सपोर्ट नहीं किए, और पाकिस्तान कुछ दिनों के बाद वो भी अपना न्यूक्लियर वेपन कैपेबिलिटी को डिक्लेयर किया। हालांकि ये क्लैंडेस्टाइनली ऑलरेडी इसका पास सब कुछ था, लेकिन भारत के साथ साथ उन्होंने डिक्लेयर किया। और उसके बाद न्यूक्लियर वेपन कैपेबिलिटी को एक डिप्लोमेटिक वेपन्स के रूप में भी भारत के खिलाफ इस्तेमाल करता है। कारगिल वॉरफेयर के समय में आपने देखा किस तरीका से इन्होंने न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स को एक डिप्लोमेटिक वेपन्स की रूप में इस्तेमाल करके पूरी वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज को अपनी साइड में लेने की कोशिश किया। कहा कि अगर आप भारत को नहीं रोकोगे तो फिर हम न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स इस्तेमाल करेंगे। और इसीलिए आप देखें कारगिल वॉर के समय में कैसे अमेरिका, पाकिस्तान, भारत अमेरिका और यूनाइटेड किंगडम, भारत और पाकिस्तान दोनों को कैसे डिसिप्लिन करने की कोशिश की। और इस सिलसिला में कई बार ऐसे लगता है कि जो पाकिस्तान की जो न्यूक्लियर स्टॉकपाइल है, जो आर्सेनल है, कहीं ऐसा ना हो, क्योंकि ये तो फेल्ड स्टेट है ही, जब उनका बैकवर्ड्स में टेररिस्ट को पालता है तो टेररिस्ट के हाथ में भी कभी भी ये शक्ति अगर चला गया तो इसका गलत इस्तेमाल करने के लिए वो एक क्षण भी नहीं सोचेंगे, क्योंकि उनको कोई परवाह नहीं होगा। जब सुसाइड स्क्वाड का बात आप जानते हैं कि कैसे उनको किसी चीज का परवाह नहीं होता है, तो उस समय में फिर ये बहुत डेंजरस परिस्थिति हो सकती है, उत्पन्न हो सकती है। और एक जो ज्यादा एंजाइटी जो दिखाया जाता है न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन में, वो आप देखते हैं कि कैसे इसको अब ये कोशिश हो रही है कई सारे आर्म्स कंट्रोल डिजार्मामेंट की टॉक करके कि इसको कैसे कम किया जाए, लेकिन ये सारी टॉक्स किस तरीका से हमें कोई ऐसे समाधान की तरफ नहीं ले जा रहे। नॉन प्रोलिफरेशन की स्ट्रैटेजीज में डिप्लोमेटिक प्रेशर, आर्थिक रूप में कैसे प्रतिबंध लगाना और सीधा प्रत्यक्ष मिलिट्री इंटरवेंशन की बात भी होती है, लेकिन इसका बावजूद भी न्यूक्लियर आर्म्स कंट्रोल हो नहीं पा रहा है और प्रोलिफरेशन बढ़ रहा है। नॉन प्रोलिफरेशन एंड न्यूक्लियर डिसआर्मामेंट. In this context, non-proliferation has increasingly been linked to a commitment to nuclear disarmament, and that is why arms control talk and all that. Why is it so difficult to prevent states from acquiring nuclear weapons? We have been discussing all these things, so this is a kind of repetition rather, but just to help you to develop comprehensive understanding and notes. Obviously the PPT has been made in a very comprehensive manner. Why has greater emphasis been placed on the goal of creating a world free of nuclear weapons? And that is why we all know greater emphasis is being placed on the goal of creating a world which will be free of all kinds of nuclear weapons. And India is of course committed to that. Of course that's very difficult. As things stand now, it will be almost implausible to think along that line that the world can be free of nuclear weapons. It's very difficult to think that way. Now we'll be talking about the peace movement and the idea of a post-nuclear world. Obviously, to make the world free of all kinds of nuclear weapons, there are peace movements at the international level, global civil society movements you can relate to. We were discussing about that also a few days back. So global civil society movements, global social movements, which are very well known, how they are actually protesting against the use of nuclear weapons, and they are very famous for their anti-nuclear activism. The idea of a post-nuclear world, a world which will be without nuclear weapons, has long been advanced by the peace movement. And for them, obviously, anti-nuclear activism is the most prominent cause. In a sense, the campaign against nuclear weapons was born at the moment that the world's first atomic bomb was tested. We were discussing how in 1945, atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima first, and a few days later, a much more powerful bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The father of the atomic bomb, Robert Oppenheimer, who latter actually even opposed, because he very well knew who was in the helm of affairs, who was controlling the Manhattan Project, the man behind the bomb, knew how devastating it was and how it was going to destroy this little planet, beautiful human civilization completely. And that is why later on he opposed, though unsuccessfully. He couldn't actually prevent that, but he opposed. This is a fact. We must all remember that he opposed the development of the still more fearsome hydrogen bomb. The hydrogen bomb, which was planned to be developed those days, it was this father of the atomic bomb, Robert Oppenheimer, who opposed that move, though he didn't succeed. So very soon a hydrogen bomb was developed, and it was much more dangerous and devastating, much more devastating than the atom bomb which were actually dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Hydrogen bomb was obviously much more dangerous than. इस स्लाइड में हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं शांति की जो आंदोलन, शांति के लिए जो आंदोलन है, पीस मूवमेंट जिसको कहा जाता है, जो एक ऐसे विश्व देखना चाहता है जिसमें न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स ना हो और पूरा विश्व को न्यूक्लियर वेपन से फ्री बनाना। इनकी एंटी न्यूक्लियर एक्टिविज्म के लिए जाने जाते हैं, वही उनका मुख्य प्रोमिनेंट कॉज है। एक तरह से देखा जाए ये मूवमेंट को आप जिस समय में एटम बम ड्रॉप हुआ उस समय तक भी ले जा सकते हैं, क्योंकि इसकी एक प्रत्यक्ष प्रमाण यह है कि रॉबर्ट ओपेनहाइमर, जो कि मैनहट्टन प्रोजेक्ट का मुख्य थे और जिसको फादर ऑफ द एटॉमिक बम कहा जाता है, उन्होंने खुद उस समय में जब हाइड्रोजन बम को डेवलप करने की कोशिश किया जा रहा था, जो कि एटम बम जो कि ड्रॉप हुआ था हिरोशिमा नागासाकी में, उससे भी ज्यादा डेंजरस है। ये हाइड्रोजन बम को डेवलप करने के लिए जो बातचीत हो रही थी, खुद रॉबर्ट ओपेनहाइमर उसका विरोध किए। इसका मतलब पीस मूवमेंट कहीं ना कहीं वहीं से शुरू हो गई थी। वही शांति आंदोलन की बात को और थोड़ा आगे बढ़ाते हुए, and why actually it was becoming so popular, because historically for many, these kind of, weaponization, which was unprecedented and which would create a kind of, scale of death and destruction, which had fundamentally altered the thinking about the ethics of war. And that is why fighting a just war, sometimes, it was actually, given a diplomatic status, that war can be used as a diplomatic weapon according to the realists. Okay. And they obviously they would say that, okay, if it is a just war, you can always go for it, because there is no other alternative. So you can use even war as a diplomatic method and to fight against injustice. But this kind of notion of a just war is becoming entirely redundant. So this narrative, war narrative, is changing fundamentally, because nuclear weapons are now capable of creating unprecedented scale of death and destruction, and this definitely has fundamentally altered thinking about the ethics of war. As the nuclear arms race accelerated during the Cold War period, large-scale peace movements were mobilized because of this, because the narrative was changing. So large-scale peace movements were mobilized, focusing on anti-nuclear protest. There are some examples here. UK-based Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND, was founded in 1958, and the aim of this campaign for nuclear disarmament was to free the world of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction, WMD. And European nuclear disarmament was another such protest movement which emerged in the early 1980s, and this also obviously was trying to make an attempt to extend anti-nuclear activism across Europe, even though it was not actually having much more success, but it was trying to even spread that kind of anti-nuclear activism into the ex-Soviet bloc as well. Okay, the Soviet bloc obviously, which was, as you all know, was not very, positive about such things, because they had all kinds of confrontation with the United States of America during the Cold War era. And 1980s, obviously, that was the peak time of Cold War. So, but even then, these peace movements were also spreading into the Soviet bloc, though not with much success, with limited success, but they were at least spreading. So there were all kinds of movements happening in different parts of the world. Okay, and these peace movements were obviously becoming very significant, and they were obviously pressurizing the political rulers, the political leaders, to go for some kind of nuclear disarmament. अभी हम वही शांति आंदोलन की बात जो कर रहे हैं, किस तरीका से न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स का जो शक्ति है, जिसकी बलबूते पे ये ऐसे डेथ एंड डिस्ट्रक्शन क्रिएट कर सकता है जिसके बारे में कभी हम सोच भी नहीं सकते। यही सोच मौलिक रूप में वार की नैरेटिव को बदल दिया है। और जिस तरीका से यथार्थवादी कहीं ना कहीं युद्ध को एक डिप्लोमेटिक वेपन के रूप में इस्तेमाल करने की बात कर रहे थे, जस्ट वार की बात कर रहे थे कि न्याय के लिए युद्ध की बात कर रहे थे और युद्ध को कहीं ना कहीं जस्टिफाई कर रहे थे, ये सब चीजें कहीं ना कहीं अब आप देख रहे हैं बदल गया। ये नैरेटिव संपूर्ण रूप से बदल गया, क्योंकि जस्ट वार क्या होगा जब कोई नहीं बचेगा। न्यूक्लियर कॉन्फ्रंटेशन का मतलब सबका विनाश, संपूर्ण विनाश। तो ऑब्वियसली इस स्थिति में जस्ट वार की कॉन्सेप्ट ही रिडंडेंट हो गया और न्यूक्लियर आर्म्स रेस जैसे जैसे शीतयुद्ध युद्ध की समय में और ज्यादा बढ़ता गया, सोवियत संघ, एक्स सोवियत संघ और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, नाटो, वार्सो ग्रुप में जो कन्फ्रंटेशन की वजह से न्यूक्लियर आर्म्स रेस तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहा था, उसी समय में आप देख रहे हैं लार्ज स्केल पीस मूवमेंट भी कैसे उनका एंटी न्यूक्लियर प्रोटेस्ट को आधार बनाकर किस तरीका से अलग अलग प्रांतों में लोगों को मोबिलाइज कर रहे थे। इसमें कुछ उदाहरण यहाँ दिया गया है, यूके बेस्ड, जो खास करके यूके में बेस्ड है, ये कैंपेन फॉर न्यूक्लियर डिसआर्मामेंट, जिसको 1958 में जिसको क्रिएट किया गया। और इसका मुख्य लक्ष्य ये था कि विश्व को आणविक शस्त्र एवं और जो शस्त्र है, जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन, सभी को समाप्त करने की जो शस्त्र है, उसको पूरी तरह से विश्व को इन सब शस्त्रों से मुक्ति दिलाना। और उसी तरह यूरोपियन न्यूक्लियर डिसआर्मामेंट, इसका शुरुआत 1980s में हुआ और इसका भी एक तरीका से ये कोशिश रहा है कैसे जो एंटी न्यूक्लियर एक्टिविज्म को यूरोप का सभी प्रांतों में इसको फैलाया जाए, लोग को उसके लिए मोबिलाइज किया जाए। यहां तक कि जो सोवियत ब्लॉक कहा जाता था, जहां पर उनको ज्यादा सफलता नहीं मिली, फिर भी कम से कम ये कोशिश किए वहां पर भी इस तरह की शांति आंदोलन को स्प्रेड करने की भी कोशिश किया गया। शांति आंदोलन की जो डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन, लार्जेस्ट डेमोन्स्ट्रेशंस took place in 1983 in protest against NATO's decision to cite USA cruise and Pershing intermediate range missiles in Western Europe, which were very much debated those days. Okay, because NATO had taken this decision to cite US cruise and Pershing intermediate range missiles in Western Europe. Okay, and this was obviously very much disliked by the Soviet bloc. An estimated 1 million people protested in London, while some 600,000 also took to the streets in West Germany. So all over, you find, these peace movements were obviously, spreading across the globe. International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, was launched in 2007, and it represents over 200 organizations in some 50 countries. Okay, so all-round efforts were going on. Its chief goal is the establishment of a legally binding, verifiable nuclear weapons convention. I mean, this campaign to abolish nuclear weapons has a very important, goal, that is establishment of a legally binding and verifiable nuclear weapons convention, that you can have some legally binding law, and if somebody is going to violate, one can be taken to task, punitive actions can be taken against the country. And it was also trying to have a verification system. Okay, so verifiable nuclear weapons convention, by which you can actually verify whether the progress in nuclear disarmament is conclusive, is substantial, to know that you can have some verification method under which under this nuclear weapons convention, they were actually aspiring that use or whatever reason, for whatever reason, of a nuclear weapon would constitute a violation of international law. So they are trying to obviously strengthen and take some legal measures, strengthen the international law, existing international law in such a way that if any country was going to use nuclear weapons or going to develop even nuclear weapons, punitive actions can be taken against that country. So there must be legally binding laws. Okay. So this was the goal of this, campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. So they are trying to have a kind of, binding and verifiable nuclear weapons convention, which would obviously, declare any use of nuclear weapons as illegal, and against that violation of international law, punitive actions can also be taken. So this was what actually was thought of. बहुत बड़ा डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशंस 1983 में नाटो की डिसीजन के खिलाफ हुआ, क्योंकि यूएस क्रूज और पर्सिंग इंटरमीडिएट रेंज मिसाइल्स वेस्टर्न यूरोप में लगा रहा था। उसकी जो ये डिसीजन के खिलाफ खूब आंदोलन हुआ। 1 मिलियन लोग लंदन में प्रोटेस्ट किए, 600,000 रोड पे आ गए वेस्ट जर्मनी पे। इंटरनेशनल कैंपेन टू एबॉलिश न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स लॉन्च किया गया 2007 में, जिनका 200 ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस करीब करीब 50 कंट्रीज में है। और इनकी लक्ष्य क्या है? इनकी लक्ष्य ऐसे एक लीगली बाइंडिंग और वेरिफिएबल न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स कन्वेंशन रखा जाए, जिसके तहत न्यूक्लियर वेपन का किसी भी तरह की इस्तेमाल अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानून के खिलाफ माना जाएगा और उसके खिलाफ सख्त से सख्त कदम उठाया जाएगा। न्यूक्लियर फ्री जोन्स कॉन्सेप्ट है, ये भी एक इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है, न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स फ्री जोन। The campaign against nuclear weapons has also been advanced through the establishment of nuclear free zones in many parts of the world. Let's see where are the nuclear free zones existing. Earliest of these were in Antarctic 1959 में, Latin America and Caribbean 1967, South Pacific 1985 में, Treaty of Pelindaba 1996 declared Africa to be a nuclear free zone, as did the Bangkok Treaty 1997 in relation to Southeast Asia. इसमें थोड़ा स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक है, एसिस हो गया है, एशिया उसको करते ना। Yes. Taken collectively, these treaties mean that most of the southern hemisphere is now a nuclear free zone. तो इस तरीका से आप देख रहे हैं कैसे बहुत सारी एरिया में न्यूक्लियर फ्री जोन्स क्रिएट किया गया है, उसकी पूरी डाटा यहाँ पर है। और motivating factors behind such trends and movement, what are the motivating factors? What are the causes behind such movement? Such trends and movements have been motivated by a variety of considerations. Most prominently, nuclear weapons have been seen as morally indefensible, if not quintessentially evil. अगर पूरी तरह से इसको गलत नहीं तो नैतिक रूप में इसको गलत माना गया है बाय एंड लार्ज। तो इसीलिए नैतिकता के आधार पर, मूल्यों के आधार पर इसके खिलाफ आंदोलन हो रही। इन दिस व्यू द डेवलपमेंट यूज और थ्रेटेंड यूज ऑफ वेपन that would lead to the indiscriminate deaths of tens of thousands or more likely millions of people can never be justified in any circumstances. जब इस तरीका की शस्त्र का इस्तेमाल में इतनी सारी भारी मात्रा में लोगों की जिंदगी नष्ट हो जाएगी, खत्म हो जाएगी, और इतनी भारी मात्रा में डिस्ट्रक्शन हो जाएगा, धरती भी नहीं रहेगा, तो ये इसको कभी भी न्यायोचित नहीं माना जा सकता है। Economic and political case of nuclear disarmament. Now we will try to link it to economic and political case. And what are these considerations, such as the huge cost of their development, the belief that the strategy of nuclear deterrence simply leads to an escalating and unstable arms race making nuclear war more likely and not less likely, and that nuclear weapons deepen inequality among states as the elite nuclear club try to dictate to the rest of the world. Most important economic and political considerations are that such development of nuclear weapons is a very costly affair. So it will be obviously diverting useful funds and resources for such destructive purposes, which could have been used for human welfare. So that is the most important economic and political reason consideration. Okay, and then it is also creating inequality among states as the elite nuclear club is trying to dictate to the rest of the world, and it's trying to have its monopoly. There are also psychological arguments against nuclear weapons, which are advanced or being suggested, not least linked to their capacity to generate unending anxiety and dread, because it will create a lot of tension, unending anxiety and dread, as post 1945 generations have lived under the shadow of the bomb. I said how even after the attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, many years after that, people are still actually under the spell of that kind of fear, that kind of the shadow of the bomb, the consequences which are far reaching. Okay, even the next generation is born in a defective way, so all that is very terrifying, and obviously such kind of psychological arguments are also very often advanced. Then we are talking of some measures like partial test ban treaty, which was done in 1963. Of course, India, as you will come to know, has not signed any of these treaties because these treaties are considered to be discriminatory in nature. The partial test ban treaty was signed by the governments of the then Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom on 5th August 1963, before it was opened for signatures by other countries. It was a treaty banning nuclear weapon tests in the atmosphere, in outer space, and underwater, which prohibited all tests of nuclear weapons except for those conducted underground. Please remember, underground tests were not prohibited. Only tests in the atmosphere, outer space, and underwater, they were actually prevented. So that is why it is called partial test ban treaty. It was not complete. It is also abbreviated as the Limited Test Ban Treaty and Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, NPT. Okay. The impetus for the test ban was provided by rising public anxiety over the magnitude of nuclear tests, particularly test of new thermonuclear weapons, hydrogen bombs, and the resulting nuclear fallout. So it was obviously because of the public anxiety, because of the peace movement, which were obviously gaining momentum. It was because of that. Okay. Now, partial test ban treaty. A test ban was also seen as a means of slowing nuclear proliferation and nuclear arms race. This was obviously thought that it would some way halt the proliferation of nuclear arms race. Though the PTBT partial test ban treaty didn't halt proliferation or the arms race, its enactment did coincide with a substantial decline. There was definitely a decline in the concentration of radioactive particles in the atmosphere. That was the only small gain which probably could be obviously cited in its favor. Otherwise, it was a highly discriminatory treaty, because we are coming to discuss that in the next point. India was not a signatory to this treaty as it was discriminatory in nature and designed to deprive other nations from using nuclear energy even for peaceful purposes. India, which has such a good record, okay, because it was obviously committed to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, and why should it be prevented from that? And since this was trying to maintain the monopoly of the nuclear club, and it was trying to obviously discriminate some countries like India, so India didn't sign it. It wanted to maintain the monopoly of the nuclear club, and India didn't obviously like this idea. India has always stood for complete disarmament, which we have already talked about. Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968 prohibited non-nuclear weapon states from possessing, manufacturing and acquiring nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive device. Again, this is obviously discriminatory, and that is the reason that many countries haven't signed. India, Pakistan, Israel, they have declined to sign the NPT on the grounds that such a treaty is fundamentally discriminatory, as it places limitations on states that do not have nuclear weapons, while making no efforts to curb weapons development by declared nuclear weapon states. So this is why it is actually considered to be discriminatory. It is considered to be discriminatory because when there are limitations on states which do not have nuclear weapons, but there are no efforts which are made to curb the weapon capability or weapons development program of the nuclear club of those countries which have nuclear weapons already, which have been declared as nuclear weapon states. So there are no curbs, no restraints on their behavior or their activities. So this is discriminated. But I am, of course, I will not keep Pakistan in the same page, though Pakistan, has also followed India and it has declined to sign. But I would say that India has every reason to be dissatisfied. India has obviously declared, we'll come to that in the next slide. We'll see how India has a very good record so far as nuclear energy, peaceful use of nuclear energy is concerned, and we have made it very clear. And not only that, we have even said that we are not going to use nuclear weapons against any country which doesn't have nuclear weapons. And those countries which have nuclear weapons, even against them, we are not going to use it as fast strike capability. That means we'll use nuclear weapons only when we are attacked by a nuclear weapon country and nuclear weapons are used against us, only then we will retaliate. भारत, पाकिस्तान, इजराइल इसको साइन नहीं किया है क्योंकि इसको भेदभावपूर्ण कहा गया है. मैं पाकिस्तान को उसी हिस्सा में नहीं रखूंगा जहां इंडिया को रखूंगा, लेकिन हाँ, ये बात है कि इंडिया का बड़ा साफ रिकॉर्ड है. इंडिया क्लियरली बोलता है कि हम न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स किसी नॉन न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट के खिलाफ इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे जिसका पास ये वेपन्स नहीं है. और फिर न्यूक्लियर वेपन स्टेट के खिलाफ भी हम इसको इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे अगर हमारी खिलाफ न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. तो इसका मतलब फास्ट स्ट्राइक कैपेबिलिटी हमारा नहीं होगा. तो इंडिया का इसमें बहुत बेहतरीन रिकॉर्ड है. यही शो करता है कि क्यों सिविल न्यूक्लियर डील अमेरिका के साथ इंडिया का एग्रीमेंट हुआ है जब मनमोहन सिंह प्रधानमंत्री थे. ठीक है, तो क्योंकि ये रिकॉर्ड शो करता है कि हमारा कितना अच्छा रिकॉर्ड है. तो इसलिए हम अगर किसी को भेदभावपूर्ण कहते हैं तो इसमें बहुत इस आवाज में बहुत दम है. कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव टेस्ट बैन ट्रीटी, जो कि after the end of the Cold War in 1991, a proposal was discussed to convert the nuclear test ban treaty into an instrument banning all nuclear weapons tests. So from partial test ban, the world was moving towards comprehensive test ban treaty. Okay, so obviously after the Cold War in 1991, okay, with this strong support from the United Nations General Assembly, negotiations for a comprehensive states ban treaty began in 1993. Extensive efforts were made over the next few years, 3 years, to draft the treaty text and its 2 annexes. Finally, on 10th December 1996, the comprehensive test ban treaty was adopted by a large majority exceeding 2/3 of the General Assembly's membership. But here again, please remember, India, North Korea and Pakistan have not signed it. India stands firm on her full commitment to the goal of total nuclear disarmament. India has declared in no uncertain terms her her views on her policy of no fast strike against any country and no use of nuclear weapons against the non-nuclear weapon state. So we have discussed all of that, and it has not only declared such things, it is in the public domain, but India has obviously given a lot of evidence that it is very firm, and it has actually proved what it has claimed, what it has declared, which is in the public domain. India has stood by this declaration, not only in words but in action. The action of India shows that very clearly, that India has always behaved in a very, very responsible manner, and that is why today we have civil nuclear deal which has been agreed with the United States of America, and many other nuclear weapon states have also agreed to cooperate with us, okay, in the civil nuclear area. Okay, so that actually proves India's record, and that is obviously a testimony to the fact that the world is also convinced regarding India's position so far as this important issue is concerned. But yes, let me conclude this discussion by saying that when you are talking of complete disarmament, a world which will not be having any nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction, and we can make this world very safe, to have that kind of dream come true, we have to think in terms of, again, addressing to inequality, injustice, inequality and poverty in the developing countries, human rights violation in the developing countries, in the least developed countries, what is happening to these countries, and how, for example, these countries are suffering under the impact of poverty and inequality. Unless and until these issues are also addressed on an urgent basis, you are not actually going to have a world free of nuclear weapons. Okay, and all these arms talks are not going to be successful at all. So we have to comprehensively deal with the problems that are facing this world in the contemporary times. Thank you very much. And if there are some queries, of course I don't have much time, we have already overstayed because a lot of things had to be covered. But even then, if some of you can ask me some specific questions, okay, specific questions related to the topic, no administrative question, so please do it. Because my coordinators, my producer, they have actually told me that I can take up direct questions from my students. So that's a very good thing. Oh, please. Hello. हेलो. एनी क्वेरीज? कभी किसी का कोई भी अगर सवाल है इसका ऊपर, हिंदी इंग्लिश कोई आप किसी भी भाषा में भी बात कर सकते हो, किसी भाषा में नहीं, हिंदी और इंग्लिश में. तो आप प्लीज कोई अगर क्वेरीज है आप पूछो. हम ऑब्वियसली ज़्यादा समय ले चुके हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मैं कोशिश करूँगा आपकी क्वेश्चन की जवाब देने के लिए. हेलो ऑर्गेनाइजर्स, कोऑर्डिनेटर साहब. हेलो. हेलो.